strong, Juni! You're strong! You're not that strong, Juni! Ow.
Growing up, Spy Kids was one of my favorite movies. It was amazing being a kid and imagining that there was a chance that you too could be a spy and had the skills to be whisked away on some type of adventure. I'm also pretty sure every person who saw the movie as a child has a distinct memory of the scene where they put a pouch into a funky microwave and seconds later a full tray of McDonald's appears. On the surface level of the movie, it seems like a fun story about a family of spies that are kidnapped and it's up to their two kids to rescue them and save the day. But I've always felt that there's a second, almost deeper story that the movie is about. In fact, I feel even the subsequent films prove my point even further. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's start with who this video is truly going to center on. Juni.
Sorry, Juni. Guess you can't be a spy.
So some background. Spy Kids was made in 2001 and directed by Robert Rodriguez. What's awesome about Rodriguez making this film is that it's just so out of his traditional wheelhouse. You may recognize Rodriguez from his other films like Sin City, Machete, and From Dusk Until Dawn. In fact, Rodriguez is also involved in television production and has directed episodes for series such as Breaking Bad and The Mandalorian. Rodriguez has a strong connection to Mexico, both personally and artistically. He was born and raised in Texas, which has a large Mexican-American population, and he grew up with a deep appreciation for Mexican culture and traditions. You'll see this inspiration throughout the film, which I'll get to, and also the Cortez family is shown to be bilingual, speaking both English and Spanish.
Remember when I went to make Spy Kids, the studio was like, but why are you making them Hispanic? Why don't you just make them American? Well, they are American. They're Hispanic American.
But back to the plot of the film, the Cortez family, which consists of the kids Carmen and Juni, and their parents Gregorio and Ingrid, who used to be super spies after they retired from the espionage world. We as the viewer know this from the start of the film as the children ask their mother to tell them their favorite bedtime story about the two spies that fell in love, and it's revealed to us that the lovers in the story are Gregorio and Ingrid. Yet we also see a clue about something else in this brisk intro. The camera focuses on Juni and him treating the warts on his fingers. From the start, Juni is shown to be the weaker character. We see his sister is fed up from taking care of him, his mother being extra protective and observant, and we also see his condition, which he chooses to cover with brightly colored band-aids. This trait of Juni's is obviously set up so he can overcome it later in the film, but I think it often goes understated how Rodriguez chose to focus on this within the first few minutes of the film. Clearly, Juni's arc is relevant for this entire thing. The film continues to show the viewer how the parents are obvious spies, using high-tech equipment and having rigorous training for their children every morning. Juni, of course, struggles on the obstacle course, and it's only made worse with his sister taunting him and making him fall off. I think most viewers would assume that this was put in place to show the eventual growth of them as siblings, and the trust and care that they have for each other at the end of the film, which I'd agree with, but more so, it's showing that Juni has no one by his side, which leads to his reclusivity and alternative outlets for approval. His number one outlet is of course the main story in the film and the subsequent villain, Fegan Floop, who is a children's television host turned mad scientist on his show Floop's Fooglies. Everyone is dismissive of Juni and his love of this show, which in my opinion is insane. This show is so creepy. Weird eyeball balloons with like disfigured monsters dancing on top of them, and songs about how nasty and mean everyone in the world is, but Floop. This should have been a huge red flag for his parents. Gregorio isn't even upset about the content, he's just mad that his kid is always watching these darn video games.
Are you winning, son?
This scene also sets up the demented monster that Gregorio is eventually turned into by Floop later in the film. Again, this is something that's Juni's creation. Do you see the direction that I'm heading in here? Okay, as the film carries on, the parents eventually get kidnapped and the kids are on their way to help. We see more Mexican inspiration from filmmaker Rodriguez with his iconic Mexican-American actor Cheech Marin from Cheech and Chong starring as the Cortez's family uncle. He's the first victim of the Cortez family by Floop, who turns him into one of his creepy monsters. Meanwhile, Juni and Carmen are in a super high-tech cabin where Carmen is in control and figuring everything out, and Juni is just sort of wandering around and checking out all the gadgets. Although in this scene it's Carmen who's driving the story, there is a secret plot that is slowly unfolding here. For those of you who are already familiar with the other films, Juni's specialty is gadgets. In every additional movie, he's glammed out in tech, and even in this one, we see him starting to get more familiar with them. As the kids continue snooping and supposed government agents appear at the cabin to help out the kids, we see that despite Carmen being the one who has done all of the investigating, it's Juni who figures out what's up with their parents. The fake spy who calls herself Miss Grandenko tells Carmen and Juni they received a message from their parents with the word floop, and she sits with Juni explaining who the mutant characters in the show really are. We see on Juni's face his distraught. The one person he thought appreciated him, cared for him, and loved him, had captured his parents and was planning on turning them into one of his messed up creations. As much as it's important to Carmen to find her parents and save them, we see here how much more important this is to Juni. He doesn't want to just save the day. He wants to get to the bottom of what's happening, find out the real story, because something just doesn't add up to him. It's at this moment in the film we really see a change in Juni. It's where he decides it's time to step up and make sure this movie is about him. This is shown right away, as when Miss Grandenko attempts again to gain the trust of the kids, Juni is the one who sees through it, and it's Carmen who reveals the secret that the third brain lives. In the movie, the third brain is a secret weapon developed by the OSS to help them defeat their enemies. However, the exact nature and capabilities of the third brain are not explained in detail, but it's a major plot point in Spy Kids 3D Game Over, kind of, sorta, whatever. It's just another thing they put in this movie that I just wanted to talk about. Okay, right as Carmen accidentally finds the third brain and the henchwoman takes it, Juni is there, already with a weapon in hand, showing the beginning of his arc. Keep in mind, this is 38 minutes into the movie, and this sets the stage for every subsequent film. The scene then carries out into an epic chase scene with jetpacks, Carmen suddenly knowing exactly what to do, and eventually she gets the goons off their back by crashing into a billboard, which is, unsurprisingly, a Floops Fooglies poster in Spanish promoting his TV show. There's that Mexican influence. See, I told you it was gonna come full circle. Okay, now, before I go any deeper, I need to acknowledge that yes, Spy Kids is a children's movie, and so is the rest of the franchise, which I'll get into a later video, are also movies made for children. They are not supposed to make sense, and it's a parody of what some of these other spy movies would be like in a world that children were actually viable candidates to work for the government. Forget about child labor laws or children understanding the gravity of being put into the life-threatening situations. I can actually overlook that for the sake of this being a movie for children. But there are just some straight-up kooky things in these films that I will eventually have to point out. Okay, skipping over a lot, the Spy Kids meet Machete, who is portrayed by actor Danny Trejo, who aids them with some spy equipment, piquing Juni's interest even more. The kids end up stealing Machete's super speed plane, and although the instruction manual looks like it's 1,000 pages long, Juni is of course able to pilot the ship, even with his sister sabotaging him in the end. They break into Floop's Island and begin the rescue mission, Juni the entire time recognizing secrets and seeing the whole picture. Skipping a bit more, we see them meet up with the mutantized secret agents, and Juni, of course, knows what to do. He speaks to them in their language, indicating his deeper knowledge for the show, but also for the situation as a whole, and he also uses the microscopic cameras to sneak around successfully. He's like putting them all over. Then, he actually meets Floop face to face, his only friend, who, in normal circumstances, he would have a parasocial relationship with, and he would know everything about Floop, but Floop wouldn't know anything about him. But in this case, Floop actually does know everything about Juni, since, well, he kidnapped his parents. Shouting at Floop and finally sticking up for himself, we see that this was not what Floop wanted all along. The person Juni really saw him as was his true self, but that he and his show had been corrupted by the actual mastermind behind the entire show, Alexander Minion. Throughout the movie, Minion is shown to be a loyal follower of Floop, willing to do whatever it takes to help him achieve his goals. However, as the movie progresses, it's revealed that Minion has his own agenda and is not entirely loyal to Floop. And who saves the day at the end of the movie but Juni? He cleverly chews that electric bubblegum and short circuits the room that he's in with Floop so that the two of them can escape. After breaking out, he rejoins with his sister, who had just saved their parents, and now the kids are ready for the final showdown, their biggest face-off, robot copies of themselves. Hell yeah, Spy Kids, we're doing it. In a fight that seems unwinnable, Robot Carmen taunts Juni, and the real Carmen inspires him by proving my point and showing that Juni really did everything in the film.
Juni, don't listen to her. You're not worthless. You figured out how to get us here. You helped Floop realize he was good, not bad.
She starts listing off the stuff that he did, which I've been pointing out this entire time. Juni still isn't strong, and it looks like he's about to get beat up by the robot version of his sister. But of course, he has his one last electric gumball, saving the day yet again. Juni, the hero. The film ends showing Juni taking off the bandages on his fingers, indicating that a true arc has been completed. His confidence and love of his family has returned, and everything looks like it's going to be all right. Then one of those kooky situations that I was talking about sort of comes up, where it's really, okay, let's just get into it. As the family is now sitting at a table eating breakfast, the head of the spy organization, Devlin, calls the Cortez to tell them about a spy mission they're needed on for the OSS, the Organization of Super Spies. As the scene plays out, he says that he doesn't actually want the parents, but actually the kids are who he's looking for. This next line is an actual line from the movie. They are the two most amazing field agents that this organization has ever seen. Wait, what? You're telling me the best agents this organization has ever seen had zero training, did their first mission, and nearly got their asses kicked, and in the end are responsible for releasing a group of robot children onto the world that are supposedly doing good deeds? Like, bro, who are you hiring at this place? Because that is actually a really low bar, and it's kind of insulting to their parents who worked in the organization for years and apparently aren't needed after one mission from their children. Anyways, the movie ends with Juni and Carmen telling off Devlin, saying spy work is easy, keeping a family together, now that's difficult. It's awesome. That's going to be it for this video. I actually thought that it was going to be one, and I wrote about all three movies, but I realized I had too much to say about each one, so I think I'm going to break it into 3 different parts. Tune in next time where I carry on the legacy of Juni, talking through Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams, and make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss the video, and give this a like if you enjoyed. See you in the next one, guys.